Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I am Dr. Christine Bacon, and I'm here today with my friend Fred Mawanda. Actually, I think you go Mawanda, Fred, Adrian in Africa. Is that how you do it?
Yes, that's how we do it. We start with the surname and then the first name, what they call the first name, which is in our case the Christian name, Fred, and
Right.
then the middle name as the last one, as Adrian.
Yeah, you said that to me. I'm like, I've been calling you Fred. Is that what you want me to call you,
Yeah.
or do you want me to call you Mawanda?
Yes. No, I prefer Fred because many times the word doesn't come out well in terms of the local language and when a person from another land speaks the name. So Fred is okay with me.
That is easy.
Yes, it's easy.
Fred is a friend of mine. He was actually on my radio show when he was in Virginia 2 years ago, I think. And
It's 2 years ago.
2 years, and building wells in Masaka, Uganda. And it's impressive how many people have been not even fed, watered because of those wells. And you've been a very big hand in helping your community. I bet you people are so grateful for what you've done for them.
It's hundreds of people every day who come to these so far 3 wells we have established in near Masaka town and outside 20-kilometer radius from Masaka, from as early as 5:30 in the morning up to around 8 p.m. in the night. These wells are serving hundreds of people with clean water. So I'm grateful to all the people in the US who have supported the construction of these wells.
Yeah, I want to make sure I toot Fred's horn. I had the privilege of going to Uganda last year. I wish I could have gone this year, but COVID has kind of hindered that. And I saw what he was doing through the community. It was very, very powerful, very humble man. So I know he doesn't want to speak of himself because he points everything to the Lord. But I know that when Fred got his degrees and he got out of college, he could have been a very wealthy man. He's gifted. He's got a visionary spirit. He sees what other people don't see and he puts it into action. And I know that the Lord once asked him, if you would you be willing to give up that wealth for me? And how long did it take you before you were able to say, Lord, I give it all up to serve you? Was that a split second? Was that a minute? What was it?
I think it has been a series of events in my life. I think number one, really, when I came to know that a grain of wheat is better off and has more life when it falls on the ground and really dies. That's when you have more grains arise.
Yeah, well, it's really great that you were able to see that because your community is thriving because of what you've done. I know that Fred Mawanda.
And I think that came from my early days at the uni.
We're having little technical difficulties there. Your microphone just went off and you have frozen. Can you hear me okay?
Hello.
Okay, I hear you.
Experience of renewal of faith when I was at the university. And then that really led me to looking at life more than myself. And there was more to life than just me. And with all these other people, number one, that needed to live a life of meaning and purpose, and which we initially draw from God. And from that, then we are able to reach out to our other brothers and sisters. And I think soon after that, I was privileged to get a scholarship to study in Italy. I did still study socioeconomics of agriculture and forestry, but related to that was also food and nutritional systems. So when I was there, I saw so many Africans on the streets in Rome and nearby towns. They looked sad and they looked pale. And in my heart, again, that was a turning moment. It was like, I have to go back home and create a difference back at home and be able to create a difference back in Africa. So I have never desired really to live outside of Africa, but to live in Africa and try to create a difference in Africa as I come across the needs of my fellow African people on a day-to-day basis.
That's quite a gift too, because have you heard of the brain drain? I know that's what we call it here. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I know about the brain drain, and hundreds of doctors who live are trained in Africa, and then they live and then they serve in Africa, in the US, in the UK. It's from all African countries. The best
Right.
of the best really live.
So they can make money, and then the people that they started out with are deprived. And you are one of the rare few that decided to stay. I know Stephen, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I forgot his name already. He's now on parliament in Tanzania. He was one of the Maasai, and he did the same thing. He came to America, got an education. He saw the wealth here, and yet he made the same decision you did, is I need to go back and serve my people, which I have to say, as someone who's lived here and someone who's been there, that's quite noble of you and him and any of you that decide to do that, because, God will reward you for the sacrifice. Amen. Yeah. So let's tell them what you do. I've printed up a lot of stuff here, but I know that you're going to be better at it because you have headed up, I know the Net Ministries, you used to work with youth, and the Charis, which is, do you want to tell them what Charis is first? So you're faster at it than I am.
Yeah, I think I'll begin from the beginning because everything has been building up to the other.
Let's do it that way.
I think number one, I had an experience of renewal of faith in Christ, and knowing that God is real, God loves me, God cares for me, God has a plan and purpose for my life. So that led me to serve the church in a relentless way, and in my diocese in Masaka. And then over time, people started observing my leadership potential and skills. And then so my service moved from just a small location in Masaka and then to be a national leader in Uganda. And then within all that, I realized that there was a gap. And the gap was really reaching out to young people who should be able to create a difference. And I looked at my own life because I had been privileged with a university degree, and only 1 to 2% of young people who go to school in Uganda are able to access university education. Wow. And I realized to be able to create a big impact, you need to reach this 1 to 2% and empower them, look at them, draw them to Christ, but then apart from that, equip them with the leadership skills and also to look beyond themselves. And therefore, a way of multiplying myself would lead to a greater impact. So that's how then I end up starting and looking out for Net Ministries, whose vision is empowered young people who are an influential force of renewal, both in church and in society. And over the last 15 years, I think every year we have been reaching about 30,000 young people, discipling closely about 500 young people, and then raising up again like 50 every year. We have been mentoring, coaching very closely for a year or two. And I did that for 12 to 15 years. And then I handed it over again because I also believe in my calling. There's no success without a successor. And I had to look out for a younger person to take over that role. And I did that in 2016. But along the way, all along, it has been a continuous challenge of mobilizing, looking at resources, and how to fund and support church work and support individuals, young people who have great leadership potential and skills, who have dropped out of school, whose parents have died of AIDS, and they cannot be able to continue in school, or they can't realize their God-given potential. And I saw and I tried, and we have done that for about 15 years again, looking and raising school fees for hundreds, actually coming to thousands of young people all over Uganda who have gone to school, otherwise who could not have been able to go to school if I just lived for myself. And so we started a program that we call Impact, and that one has been focusing on raising school fees for children, so to enable them complete school. And then I moved again from that because I had been a community leader for almost 25 years, a lay-led community in Uganda that is called Holy Trinity Community. And
what is it called? Say that again.
Holy Trinity.
Community. Okay.
Yes,
Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity Community. And through that, and because people were observing me and seeing the fruit of the work that we do, then I was called to serve at the international level and serving with what was formerly known as the Catholic Fraternity. And that was an organization that had pontifical recognition, and I was representing the whole region of English-speaking Africa. And this is a total of about 24 African countries.
And Africa is huge. 24 African countries is not like 24 American states. It's like huge. That's a lot of geography.
Yes, it's quite huge. And then from that, I tried to, again, when I am identified through that, to come to serve on what is called Charis, which was elected 2 years ago by Pope Francis, again to promote the new evangelization in the Catholic Church, promote spiritual ecumenism, and also to serve the poor in all over the world. But I represent the English-speaking Africa, but also Portuguese-speaking Africa, which is an addition of another about 6 countries, coming to about 30 countries. Now, visiting and being part of this big service, the African problems are almost the same. In each African
are almost
country,
what?
The same.
The same, the problems?
Mm-hmm. The problems are the same. You go again, hundreds and thousands of young people without jobs, hundreds and thousands of people without food, hundreds and thousands of young people without an ability to realize their God-given potential, using their gifts, having an ability to go to school or even really complete school. So through all this, then I saw that it's not enough to tell people God loves you, sleep well, brother, when you know very well they're have hungry. No food.
Right, they're hungry. Jesus
they're
always
hungry.
did that too. He fed them first, and then he said, then we'll give them the Lord.
Yes, and so I had been doing this, and then now I realized I needed a place where I should be able to feed people, physically feed them, because spiritually, I would say it's a little easier. You can stand up before 1,000 people, tell them about the love of God and share your testimony, what God has done for you. But then at the end of the day, it's like we have no food. My husband has chased me away. I have 6 children with me to feed. I have no food for tonight. And at the end of the day, even after a very good proclamation of Jesus and the Lordship of Jesus and how good God is, you come down to face the realities of the people. They have no food, they have no clean, safe water, they are living in dilapidated housing conditions. Actually, I would say the pigs and the dogs of people in the US live better than hundreds and thousands of people in Africa.
But you're not even joking. You know, that just, some people hear it. And one of the things I wanted to do with this show is we always get, and I probably should have brought an advertisement, we always get advertisement about feeding the hungry children in Africa. And you see the picture, I wonder if I have it right here. of a child who's walking down the street, you know, with its mom, and you see, we saw those images so many times with World Vision and all these, but I think with the way charities have gotten abused, people have started to see those pictures as, oh, they just use those pictures and let everyone see them. And so I think people have to go over to Africa to see. You have millions and billions of people and mothers and fathers who love just like we love, but when you're talking about a place to live, literally just your JumpStart, the businesses your women are starting. When you said, yeah, all you need is what, $79 to start a business for a woman for a year? Is that 79?
Yes.
You know, it's a little cement cinder block space about the size of many American closets. That's their place of business. And I wish if we could have a better connection, you could take a cell phone and show people while we're talking, because there's just something, Fred, about when it's live and you're talking, you're my friend, and me going, look, you guys, these are moms and dads who love their kids like we do. And, you know, a business is just selling bananas. It warmed my heart and broke my heart at the same time when I was there and I saw just selling bananas. I just need to do this to stay alive every day. And
Yes.
we're so rich here. Our dogs have dog houses with roofs.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, and one of the challenges I've seen is like when you come to visit, it's really very good, and I encourage many of you when all this is over, please come and visit and see. Come and see. That's what Jesus said. Come and see. But then there is the other side. Like for me, who lives here and who has made the decision not to go away from here, you see it every day. You see it every day. It's not made up. It's not advertisement. It's not mobilization to get resources. You see it every day. Just 3 weeks ago, I came across a young boy, and I look out for these young boys because I have a son who is almost the same age, okay, 8, 9, 10-year-old. So this 10-year-old boy comes to me with a basket full of boiled corn, which was double his weight, and on carrying it on his head. Okay, and he had been looking for people to buy from around 1 p.m. When he came across me, it was around 4 p.m. And for 3 hours, he had been walking with this 10-kilogram weight on his head looking for buyers. And when he came to me, I just was crying because I didn't want to buy his maize corn. So I chose to give him about 3 cents, 3 American cents. And he said, please buy also, take the corn, which is boiled. Because if I go back when I have not sold, my mother will beat me up if I don't bring money and I still have this maize corn with me. So I stood with him near a supermarket and I started calling people, please come, let's help this young boy to be able to sell. So I stood with him about 20 minutes and we were able to attract about 5 people together with him. And I couldn't stay with him all through, but at least I tried to reach out and really help. And this picture of this young boy, almost the age of my son, has stayed with me all this. And so it's one way when you come and you go away, but then every day, like in my situation, I'm encountered with this, and they are not made up as stories. They're real people, real suffering, real needs. And you, in a way, get overwhelmed. And I think that's what happened with the disciples of Jesus. They had these 5,000 people, and it was getting late, and they told Jesus, please send them away. It's getting dark. And Jesus challenged them and said, feed them yourselves. And says, get what you have, the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And then Jesus is make an order, make a platform where these people can sit in a structured way and we feed them. And I think this is what God has called me really to do, that I have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And God wants me to structure it in a way through the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob's blessings for Africa and start a food bank within which I can be able to mobilize food for the hungry. Right now, up to 426 children face severe malnutrition and death every day. I think Save
Is
the
that
Children.
in just Masaka?
No, in Uganda.
In Uganda, 426 children every day face starvation.
Yes, and then Save the Children has anticipated almost 100,000 will die by the end of the year because of food shortages, increased prices. There are also issues that have risen just before COVID. Okay, we had just had swarms of locusts.
Yes, you showed me those videos. Those things were as big as the palm of your hand.
Yes, so we had swarms of locusts invading the Horn of Africa, and they say this is the largest that has happened in the last 150 years. And then soon after the locusts, then we had floods, too much rain to rain.
Flies? Floods.
Yes. And then with all that, then soon after that, there was COVID. And then when you look at just Uganda, we have up to 1.5 million displaced people, refugees, coming from war-torn Sudan and Congo. And there is, in a way, a fight over resources. Food is in shortage, and actually many people cannot really be able to have 2 meals a day. You are very lucky if you have a meal a day. I have been to families which are surviving on just a fruit that is shared in between, if they are lucky. And so some resort to stealing, and some resort even to eating the maize bran. I don't know if you know maize bran. That's the outside of the corn, of the maize, that is supposed to be fed to the pigs.
Oh, the part that you peel off.
Yes, the part that you really peel off. And so that one is crushed and mixed together with other food that is remaining, and people are feeding on that. I mean, we have seen women who are feeding their children on banana peelings. On the outside of the banana, they just collect that from the garbage heap and they boil that, and they feed that to really their children. Now, this is not made up. You just see it day in and day out, all right? I mean, I know women and friends who have just said, please, I just have nothing really to do. Okay, what do I really do in this particular situation and really circumstances? Now, the challenge of being a leader and a leader over a long period of time is that many people have come to know you. They have seen you stand up and speak to them.
Right. So they come to you when they have a need.
They come to you when they have a need. And in Africa, we don't have those gates like you have in the US, always seeking permission for people to come to you to make an appointment. They just turn up. They turn up in the morning on your door. They knock at 7 a.m. and say, I'm so and so, please, I have no food for my children. Can you please really help me? And so in that way, I said, okay, God, many of the things that I've been working on may have collapsed right now because of the pandemic, like for JumpStart Africa. JumpStart Africa, we have served more than 2,500 women with microloans, averaging about $100. And the ripple of effect and the impact of that each of these women is supporting 3 to 7 children to feed them. And so during the lockdown and during the pandemic, a lot of these women, 90%, could not be able to repay these loans. And so they have used the money to feed their families. Okay, and you can't go after them and say, please pay, because you know exactly what has really happened. And
Right.
in one way or another, the JumpStart has stalled because of this. So we have been working and looking at how we can restart soon after when the businesses is, because it is a way that is self-sustaining. When you have enough working capital, you employ people, like we have been employing 7 full-time people, jobs that would not really be there. So for these jobs, we don't have to continuously fundraise from abroad. And so we need to restart JumpStart. But before we restart JumpStart, we already have the most pressing needs, and that is feeding the hungry. And that's our most pressing really need right now. And then to be able not only to have food, I think the other challenge that we see in Africa, that Africa overall has very good weather despite the natural calamities. We have very good soils in which we can grow food, but unfortunately, Africa overall imports food.
You import food, so you get food from other places coming into Africa.
Yes, overall, Africa is a net importer of food, which shouldn't be the case.
No, because if you've got good soil, you should be exporting food. You should have enough for your people and exporting. Why is that happening? Why are you not able to use your own soil? Do you not have resources, or is there a corrupt government? What is stopping the African people from taking advantage of the richness of your soil and your resources?
It's knowledge and technology, I would say. I believe, because we still depend and use the hand hoe to dig.
Oh.
Okay, we need the next level technology.
I sure wish Bill Gates would focus some of his money on doing that for Africans instead of trying to sterilize everyone with his vaccines. But I just said that publicly, and I probably shouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
You know, but you're right. I wish, and the thing about it is, to bring those tools into America would cost so much more, but to get them into Africa is really not as expensive because of the value of the dollar compared to the shilling. I mean, it's really, we could build, I mean, wealthy people here could give you $30,000 and build a building, a school.
Yes.
You know, and that's my hope. I'm hoping somebody who's watching, this is just real people. This is a real show. This is a real live. Fred's sitting there in Uganda. I've met him. I've been there. He's honest. He's got integrity. It's not some television, charity where we don't know where it's going. You can trust me. You can trust Fred. I saw him out with his hands helping to feed these mostly women, but men and women, children. And a little bit of our money goes so far. And even with COVID, we are so wealthy because we got these stimulus checks, and so many people didn't even need them. Many did. But let's just, put this in our hearts. Trust God. Give. Tithe, give your 10%, and please trust me to give some of the resources to Fred. If you need to contact me to find out anything more about it, please go to breakfastwithbacon.com. You can contact me. I can give you whatever information you need, put you in contact with Fred, and let's save some lives, because what you're doing with your money here in America and in this lifetime is one thing, but the rewards eternally are true. They really are true. Every banana you give to a child you're going to be blessed for it in heaven one day. So just need to put that out there. I hope something we can talk about today can help a family in Africa. So we've talked about a lot today with my friend Fred. Mawanda, you talked about NET, you've talked about Charis, and I think we talked about one more, but we really want to focus on the one that you just mentioned that you have started with Pauline, right? In 2017, you and your wife Pauline formed the charity, the not-for-profit Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's Blessing. And that is a limited guarantee not-for-profit entity. And that's really to help, as you already said, I'm just trying to say it again, expand your Christian outreach. That has just been an integral part of your lives. So, here's the mission is simply to contribute to the abundance and common good through work, business, investment, share resources for the common good, empower, connect people of God to be an influential force for renewal of the church and society using their God-given talents. And so the key initiatives that they have are food and nutritional security, put food in their tummies. And to do that, they have the creation of a food bank, increased food production and storage of food, water, just learning how to harvest rain and dig wells, and shelter and job creation. Number 2, enable girls to complete school, as he said, especially in nursing and teaching. And 3, again, as Fred said, but I'm saying it without the accent, supporting the creation of stable communities through self-sustaining families. I mean, that's pretty noble, Fred. I mean, that you and Pauline give everything, and you have 4 children of your own to feed. And I know that whenever there's food, you seem to make sure everybody else gets it, and you'll take what you can when it's time. But your heart is always want to take care of others, isn't it? I know you're frozen. I'm trying to wait for you to unfreeze, because I know you should unfreeze in a minute. I think we just lost Fred. So for those of you watching, just stay tuned. We're going to try and get Fred back in on this Zoom. I brought him on. Here he comes. I brought him on. I got you, Fred. We lost you, but we got you back. I don't know how much of it you heard, but I'm really, you know, one of the things I want to make real is we had a preacher come here and speak at my Catholic church about a year or 2 ago. And he said, you know, Americans call yourself poor. And I have to apologize for any time I ever said, oh, yeah, we're poor. We are not poor. I mean, the socioeconomic levels here, and I'm probably here, but Africans are way down here compared to even where I am. I have a house. I have a house with 3 bedrooms in it. I have a car. We have 3 cars. We have clothing. We have changes of shoes. We have food filling our shelves. But when all that food empties, there's always some place I can go. I can go to a food bank. When this preacher from Africa came and he talked to our church once, he said, in Africa, it's not so. He said, when you are poor and you run out of food there, you're done. You can't go to a church. You can't go to a friend most of the time because they don't have it either. So he said, when you run out of food, you're done. You have no place to turn. Here, we just go to a church, go to a food bank. Somebody's going to donate. And the story he shared was there was a priest there and another guy who was traveling with, and they each had a peanut butter sandwich with them. And I think they were fed by the ministry that they were with. So they had these kids that were following them. And so he said he turned around to give the sandwich to this child to say, you can eat this. Well, the child cut the sandwich into 4 pieces, and he gave one to each of his siblings, a little piece. And then the priest noticed that this little boy and another boy, they didn't eat any of it, the 2 older ones whom they handed it to. And he said, aren't you hungry? He said, yeah. He goes, why'd you give the food away? And he said, today's not my day to eat. And I couldn't really breathe, because what he said is they have so little food that every other day kids eat. So these kids eat on Monday, and then the other kids eat on Tuesday. Then you eat again on Wednesday, then the other kids eat on Thursday. And that really kind of rocked my world and made me, it humbled me, Fred, because of how much we have. Let me ask you, because I know you're good and you're not negative, and you'll probably say it in a good way, but when you first came to America and you saw the wealth that we have, I mean, what was your first impression towards what we have here compared to what you could do with that in Africa? I mean, what are your thoughts, and what would you say to the American people?
I think number one, you get still overwhelmed, and I have been overwhelmed. And then the second thing is like, I ask, it goes in my heart and in my mind, God, why? why there's so big difference between what is in Africa and what is really, and what people are really living out in the US,
America or Italy.
America, you come across full refrigerators with full of everything
that people throw away. My grandchildren, they don't like leftovers. You probably don't have leftovers in Africa, but we have food, and then hamburgers or hot dogs or, God forbid, steaks. And my grandchildren don't want to eat any the next day. And I'm like, what? Or, oh, I
And
don't like this.
You go to the supermarket and then you find all these shelves for dog food and for cat food and for it's like, God, why
Do you have so much more food for dogs than you have for African people?
Yes, that's true. And so I saw, and this is, I believe, why I come on this show again, is like to be a voice, a connection between those who have and those that don't really have. Yes, and I think God has asked me to be a channel. And that's what I really want to really be, because every time I've tried to live for myself, God has continuously reminded me. And that's why we named this charity the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob flowing out for the people of Africa. And it's in such a way, through Jesus, that they should really flow to Africa. And so there was an abundance in the life of Abraham. Isaac was a farmer, and he planted, and God multiplied what he had 100 times. When you read, I think it's Genesis chapter 10:6, talks about how Isaac was a farmer. And then also there was the commitment from Jacob, where he says, God, if you bless me, I will tithe. Okay, I'll be able to, and we know what the tithe really does. It's supposed to cater for those who are really poor, who have really nothing. And so when we are praying and discerning, it was like, Lord, we are calling for the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to flow to the people of Africa, their animals, that they may multiply, and whatever is needed for that to be done, we should really be able to do it. How do we get the goats and the pigs and the chicken to multiply such that people can have enough for themselves, for their families, and then contribute to the Christian common good? And so that's our prayer, and that's what we are really working for the remaining part of our lives.
Yeah, well, it's a noble thing to be working for. I do know my belief is God blessed America because our nation modeled Israel, and we founded our nation under God and said we need, so God blessed this nation. But I do know also with you, when you look at studies, Americans are the most generous people around the world as well, what we give away to others in charity. So I'm grateful to say that I'm part of generous people, but there's so much more we can be doing. And I know there's so many people right now during COVID that have lost their jobs, and we know what it's like to not have some stuff, but I don't know how many people are without food here, because I mean, there's some, but as I said earlier, we have places to go. But even those of us, like my husband's been home, but he's a government employee, so he hasn't lost any of his income. And, you know, we're not spending as much. So that's been kind of a blessing. So how do people get money to you? What is the best way to do it? Is there, in America, we have 501c3s, like kind of donated places. Is that something I could put up on the website? Because I know it's not as easy to just plop some money. I always said to you before, if you could just transfer from my bank account to the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's Blessing bank account, it would be so much easier. But what would you advise people if they want to send money, the best way to do it?
I think one of the helping hands I have received is really through the New Creation
Christian Church
community
in Virginia Beach. Okay.
New Creation community in Virginia Beach has helped even, I think, a few weeks back. They helped with 100 families, feeding 100 families in different parts of Uganda. So New Creation community has been a helping hand, and it's one that people can easily send money to with a 5013, as they call it.
Right.
Yes, in the US, yes.
So what I'll tell, and I'll make sure I can connect it on the website, in order to, because everyone here seems to care about tax deductibility. I want to give money and claim it back. Okay, I mean, but you can give money and not worry about what it's going to do to your taxes, just your eternity. But yeah, New Creation Community Church, I think. Is it just New Creation?
It's not a church. It's just a lay-led community. It's a Catholic community.
Okay, so the New Creation. Okay, keep saying that.
Has ecumenical relationships.
Ecumenical, that's right. Okay,
Mm.
and so we can donate money, give money to them, and they will make sure it goes straight to you. And will it go straight to the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob blessing? Do they have to tell them that, because, or does that church also give money for JumpStart?
They need to indicate that it is for, depending on what one is really called for. If it is for feeding the needy and feeding the hungry, then it should go straight to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's blessings. And in short, you can abbreviate it as AIJBA. AIJBA. So if anybody donates money, you can indicate a note for AIJBA. Then we will know that it's going to food aid and food assistance for people. And then if it is to help a family to start a business or restart a business, just an average of about $100 per family, then that one can be indicated as JumpStart Africa.
Okay, so just to clarify, is if you want to feed people, you want to send your money to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's blessing, which is AIJBA. And again, if you have information, if you're questioning, you can get a hold of me. I can clarify, breakfastwithbacon.com. You can also contact us at 757 in America, 757-343-0368. And I will go ahead and give you explanation. Now, if you want to do more than just give food and you want to help employers set up one of these small business loans, these, what did you call them? The micro grants for a woman who started, micro loans. You can give your money to JumpStart America. But Fred has been
Africa.
What did I say? Did I say America?
JumpStart Africa.
Yes. Did I say JumpStart America?
Yes.
Okay, I meant JumpStart Africa. I wanted to make sure, I mean, I just love your people. It was something, especially the Christians watching the show. When I went there, you know, in America, there's so much Christian oppression at this point that we're starting to see. And you say anything godly, separation of church and state. When I went to Africa and everything was Christian and Catholic, and you walked everywhere and there was signs on buildings and cars praising God everywhere. You know, I say, who's really the rich people, Fred? Those of us who have material wealth but are turning away from God, or we don't see it because we think we've done it ourselves, or the African people who don't have the material wealth, all they have is God, but that's all they need. You know what I mean? It seems like in that sense,
I think so that helps with resilience, and I think I call it spiritual capital. It helps with the resilience, with hope, with grit, with the possibility not to give up, giving you a best for not giving up under the worst of circumstances.
Yes. Oh, I want to change the subject and ask a question real quick. When I went there, you took me to Catholic Mass. There had to be, what, 3,000 people in that church? How many people did that church hold?
Yeah, about 1,500.
Oh, it seemed like more than that, but okay. So, and it was packed. It was packed. And I loved, and the music and people praising, and it wasn't rushing to get done in an hour like they do in America. And, you know, in America, you have, well, our church would be full, but we'd have, you know, 500-600 people, but there'd still be a lot of empty seats. And I wish people could know what they have on that altar, and that's why they went. So I'm curious, with COVID, what kind of restrictions have been imposed, and are you guys still able to worship, or what's going on there?
Yeah, it has been really very hard. For, I think, since March, we attended our last Mass in March. But in between there, I have only attended 2 Masses. One was the burial of my cousin. She died like a month ago. And then the second one, we had to call in a priest to come at home because we have been praying on online and holding our household services. I think in Africa, I don't know if in America they do it. You can have a catechist, a lay teacher, lead a service. You don't have communion, you don't have the consecration, but you go through all the steps of Mass without having consecration and Holy Communion. So we call it a service. So at home, we have had services, and each one of us at home has played a role. All my children have led a service, and we have had a roster. And then some Sundays we will be changing, and then we have a downloaded Mass, a Mass that is prayed the day before, but for Sunday. Then we have it for a change, or else then we go online and have, but not many families can really be able to do that, or else then there has been Mass on radio stations, okay? But we haven't had a church since March. Even up to now, church is still under lockdown. So we don't know if it will be open soon or later, but that's how the situation is. And in a way, it has helped the coherence and the family bonds within families. Yes. But also for other families, they have not been used to staying together for a long time. So there has also been an increase in domestic violence.
Yes, here too.
Yeah, and so also I think overall in the news it has been like almost like 30,000 young girls are going to drop out of school because they have become pregnant during the lockdown. And so there has been the blessing side of the lockdown, and then there's also the other side of the lockdown. I think 90%, a study has just come out this week actually, that 90% of the families lost jobs. 90% lost jobs and a source of income. And so more than 3 million people are totally falling back into poverty in a situation which has been almost like 40% of the 40 million are living below the poverty line, which is being able to live on $1 a day. And so the situation, the economic situation has become worse and worse, and it's actually terrible. And we don't know how actually the economy will be really jump-started. But I think it still goes back to production of the essentials, which is again food, being able to access seed to plant, and accessing also tools to plant and to plant in time. And I think the other thing we have been thinking, and we have received help with through the New Creation community, has been apart from the food that is produced, there is another problem that 50% of the food that is produced is wasted. It is eaten by rats, it molds, it gets lost. And so families need to be helped with a way in which they can preserve in a clean
jars
food,
and
jars, and dry it in the sun and keep it for at least 3 months before the next harvest. So that is not really happening because we live from hand to mouth. And if you have not been working for 3 months and you're used to weekly possibilities, it really becomes very hard. And so as part of this food bank initiative, we are looking at how we help families conserve, preserve food in a healthy, nutritional way so that they can be able to last at least 3 months before the next harvest season. So it's part of the initiatives we are undertaking.
So much. There's just so much.
Yeah.
I wish we could solve all the world's problems, but we just have to keep our faith in God and do our part. And I know you're doing all you can. And you know, you may look like this big shot guy, but you also have you don't have an income either, do you?
And then what?
Income? Where do you
The
get paid?
income.
Do you have a job?
The job has JumpStart was filling in terms of having a job, but JumpStart is almost now closed. We are still working to jumpstart it.
JumpStart.
So to jumpstart it, and then we have been growing food. We have been growing food for ourselves, and so that is not predictable. So we basically have been relying on farming. And so we had floods in April and we lost all our bean crop. We harvested a little corn, which we believe will last us the next really 3 months. And so because of the floods, we really lost a lot of possibilities for our own food stability. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And another thing I wasn't aware of until I was there at your house, when I think you were just getting malaria, just to pay for medicine. Africans don't have insurance.
Yes.
So you have to pay for everything immediately. And that's something I think Americans take for granted. So many people here have insurance. I know there's some that don't have insurance, but we have Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, which covers a lot more people. But, you know, I'm just trying to do this radio show to put into perspective what we don't even think about here, you know. So, you know, if a father has to decide, do I buy medicine for my child to get better, or do I feed the family? I don't know what that's like to have to make that decision. So I'm just hoping the Lord has some generous person or persons or community or churches watch this show and say, let's help them. So that would be my hope.
It's a prayer. It is very hard because you come across this day in, day out. I think 2 weeks ago, a young man who had his wife about to deliver comes ringing on my door at around 3 a.m. I want to be able to take my wife to hospital. And so I asked a friend to help drive because I was very, very tired. I had just covered about 400 kilometers. And so this gentleman drove them to the hospital. But in the hospital, they couldn't touch this girl who was due to deliver before she could be able to pay an equivalent of about $20. Okay? And he only realized that the person who took the money was not even the medical person who was supposed to attend. And then the next day, after at around 7, he required another $20. And all this time, because it was life and death to save this woman and the baby, so all the time he was ringing me, and this is a real situation of this young couple. I'll send you their photo. They ended up naming their child after my name, but they just needed about an equivalent of $40 to be able to help this child. So our health infrastructure is totally broken down. We totally have no social security. Even if government has tried to build hospitals, there's no drugs enough for these people. And COVID comes with a backdrop of malaria and HIV/AIDS. At least 400 people die every day in Uganda from malaria. We have not had very many die from COVID so far. The count to date is 32 people only. And we expect about maybe those who are infected with COVID are about 3,000. And government has just introduced a fee. If you want to check for COVID, you need to pay an equivalent of about $80. And who can really pay this? Who can be able to do this? It's just the government officials and the elites who can be able to really do this. An ordinary family in Uganda cannot pay for a COVID test. So it's just like everything really works against really the poor and the disadvantaged. And these are really the majority in our country. That's the situation in which we operate, and we continue to operate. We feel overwhelmed, but again, we look up to God, as you said, to be our source of provision, protection, and anything to be able to carry us through.
You know what just came to me was that Bible story of the rich man who had Lazarus sitting outside of his gate, and he always just begged to have just the scraps that, you know, the dogs would eat. And when they died, Lazarus was given purple robes and dining sumptuously with the Lord, and the rich man was in hell, and he was begging Lazarus just to send water to dip his tongue. And he said, Lord, please tell my brothers and sisters. And he's like, you know, even if someone rose from the dead, they wouldn't believe if they don't believe, you know, in the prophets. And what it made me think about is that, you know, Africans have had to struggle a lot just to have food and shelter. But I think about when you make it through these heavy crosses, how much greater you will be in eternity than someone who's been rich. And Americans have been rich. We've had our blessings here. Not that we're not going to get blessed in heaven, but to just realize you're making a lot of sacrifices here. And so as long as you just say, Lord, I trust you for my provision, you know, I'm grateful that your blessings in heaven can be great because of your lack today. You know?
Amen.
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 I have two statements I need you to finish. The first one is this: when I die, I will know I have been a success if, fill in the blank.
If when I die, I'll be successful if I look down on earth and see these millions of people who God has blessed through me.
Yes.
They have been enabled to be and to do all that God has called them to be able to do and to be, because I lived.
That's a good fill in the blank there. Okay, second one. Now this one's for you to tell other people, right? Name one thing you'd have our listeners and our viewers do differently as a result of something they heard today.
Yeah, I think one is to look at the essentials and non-essentials. I think that's what COVID has brought me to also reflect again. What is essential and non-essential? For example, the amount of money I save by not eating out, the amount of money I save by not traveling, the amount of money that the items that I have in my house that I've not used in a year, yes. I can put up for sale and be able to raise resources that can help somebody elsewhere.
Yes. Well, then that's what I would have other people do. You know, pay attention to what is essential and what is not. Fred Mawanda, you have been a blessing, and I appreciate what you've done for my viewers, but definitely what you're doing for the people of God. You are a gift to so many, and I know you're too humble to say it. So, you know, I'm just grateful God has made men and women like you and put them on this earth. So may he bless your hands and bless Amen. All those people that come into contact with you. May he feed millions through you. I really appreciate that.
Amen.
And yes, those hands right there. And then I ask all of you viewers and listeners, please consider giving money to and resources of any kind to people outside of your country. Let's look, I am specific to this country. I've been there. It's a beautiful country, but it's a poor country, but it's got so much love. Anyway, go back to my website. You can find out how you can feed or give money to the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's blessing. I'll give you that information, but I've got to go. So we're going to close off like I always do. And I think you know how to do it too, Fred, but let me get everything ready. I am Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I want to remind you always to live your life sunny side up.